today is a really big topic, but I'm going to try and condense it and share with you enough information so it doesn't overwhelm you, because honestly, we're talking about stress. I could talk about this for hours, and in fact, in the past, I have spoken about this for hours. So let's start with, why is it so important that we deal with stress, particularly in this stage of life? Now, if you have been listening to any of my podcasts, my Facebook Lives, my webinars, you will know that the underlying cause of the majority of symptoms that women experience when they come through menopause transition is stress. Whilst their change in hormones might trigger particular symptoms, when we go deeper, the underlying cause is stress. And we're not just talking about the emotional stress, I've had a fight with my kids, my husband doesn't understand me, that type of stress. We're talking about, it's a holistic view of stress. So we're talking about the foods that we've been eating. And if we're not eating the foods that nourish our body, then we're eating foods that stress our body. If our health is not at its optimal level, then our body is stressed. So something is out of balance within our body. We need to be looking at the environment. When it comes to the environment, where are we being stressed by environment? If we look at the physical environment, are we putting substances on our body which have got chemicals and toxins which stress our body? Are we being exposed to environmental toxins around us? That stresses our body. Then we look at the emotional environment. Are we in relationships with people that stress us out? So do we have toxic relationships? Is that stressing us as well? Are we moving the way that our body is designed to move, or are we over-exercising? And this is a biggie. I see this a lot. Women who, they come to me and they say, oh, I've got weight on and I can't lose it, and I'm exercising 2 hours a day. That, for some bodies, is a stress. We need to be moving the body the way that your body is designed to move. And if you're over-exercising, then you could be stressing your body, and that could be causing some of the symptoms that are going on. Then there's also the stress of, I won't call it spiritual, but a bit of the who am I, the soul part of you. Who am I? Not understanding who you are now that your children are more independent, who you are because your relationships are changing. All of that is a stress. So there's so many different ways that we can have stress in our lives and in our body. And this is what I'm talking about today. So hello to those of you who are on the call. Just say hello. I've got so much to talk about. I'm just jumping straight in here, talking all about stress. So as I said, stress is multifactorial. It's not just, the arguments that you're having or not liking your job, and that. So many different aspects to stress. So when our body is stressed, let's talk about what happens. There is a physical response to stress. Now, stress is actually a good thing. And whilst we might think that stress is not good, it is actually a good thing. It's a dosage thing. It's too much stress is not very good for us. But we do need stress because stress is what keeps us alive. And when we look at our evolution and how we've developed as humans, there is a part of our brain known as it's the primitive part of the brain, or the lizard part of the brain. And that part of the brain was the first part of the brain that truly developed. And that's the part of the brain that keeps us alive. It's our instinct. It's our senses. It controls a lot of our body functions. It controls the fact that our lungs just breathe, that our heart just beats, that our immune system just works. Now, we have no control over that on a conscious level. If humans had to make sure they could stay alive consciously and they were in charge of, controlling their heartbeat, they'd be going beat, 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 beat. Oh, I wonder what I'm having for dinner tonight. Oh, beat, 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 beat. Oh, remembered I had to do that and I've forgotten to do it. Oh, but so we don't control that, because obviously there is so much going on in our bodies that we have no idea that's happening, and it is just happening. So that there's that part of that primitive part of our brain which allows that to happen. And what it does is when there is a sense, another part of our brain senses that there's any type of danger, it sends messages to the lizard brain. And the lizard brain goes, okay, I have to keep safe. And what happens is we've got adrenal glands. Now, adrenal glands are tiny little glands, like pea-shaped glands that sit on top of your kidneys. And they're so powerful. They're tiny, but they are powerful. And what happens is there's basically two types of stress hormones. And in an immediate threat, those glands release what is known as adrenaline. And you've all experienced the adrenaline rush. And the adrenaline rush is your heart starts to beat faster. You might get short of breath. And what happens is your all the blood rushes out to your arms and feet because you've got to get ready to run, and you might feel a little bit jittery. Could get butterflies in your tummy, and that's because the blood is basically drained from the digestive system out to your arms and legs so you can run, because you don't need to be digesting food at this stage. You need to be getting away from danger. Also, the other things that happen is your immune system drops down. Once again, your body is putting all of its efforts, all of its resources into staying alive. Doesn't really need to worry about the immune system right at this very moment. So all of these happen very, very quickly as soon as the brain detects that there's some type of threat to life. It happens within a millisecond. It just happens. You see a car coming towards you, all of a sudden the brain is fired off the adrenaline and you basically get the message, run, get out of the way of the car. And in the past, that was a tiger. Today, car, bus, other things. Now, the thing is that adrenaline, it only comes out for a very short amount of time. It's just to get you out of the immediate danger. Then we've got a second hormone, and the second hormone is cortisol, and it follows up after adrenaline. So after the adrenaline kind of push has got you out of immediate danger, the cortisol levels come up just to kind of keep you safe and just to keep you aware. Now, cortisol is the hormone we need to be worried about, because cortisol is a long-term stress response. If you just run, you run away from the tiger, get away from the bus, and everything just calms down, well, then all your hormones come back down to normal. But if you run away from the bus and then you get a phone call and you've got all these other things happen, then the cortisol takes over. Whilst it's calmed you off the immediate threat, now there's other threats that are going on. So, the phone's ringing and people are talking to you or someone's yelling at you. All of this stuff is going on. So cortisol will continue to be released for every 12 seconds for as long as the primitive part of your brain feels that it's under threat. Now, this can go on for years. And the threats that we have today in the modern world are not the same threats that we had when, we were cave women wandering the world. But we still have these constant things that are coming at us. And these days, and I don't have it here, your phone that dings all the time. I've got a watch and it dings every so often when I get a message, and your phone dings at you and your emails ding at you, and all these things are just bing, bing, bing all the time. And then you're on social media and you're looking at all this stuff and you're feeling like you're not good enough. And then you watch the news at nighttime and it's telling you all the bad things that are happening and they're bringing it into your, into your lounge room and all this stuff. And then they have to look after the kids and you have to do this and you have to do that. All of that is stress. All of that is stress. And the whole time your cortisol levels are up. When your cortisol levels are high, you are unable to relax. Your body can't relax. When the cortisol levels are high, your digestive system comes down. You're not digesting food properly. Your immune system comes down. So your immune system is not, checking out for viruses and bacteria. So your immune system is lowered. You find that your blood pressure starts to go up because the body has changed things. The body has kept you in a state of alert all of the time. You can't go to sleep. So cortisol works opposite to the sleep hormone with melatonin. So you can't sleep properly. You're on alert all of the time. Then it also changes the reproductive hormone. So whilst you're still cycling, basically it lowers your reproductive cycle because you don't need to be having babies in these times of stress. Now, remember that this is the primitive part of your brain speaking to you. It may not be what you consciously want. So, your basically your hormones get out of balance. And I've been talking a lot over the last few days of the different hormones that are impacted by stress. Yesterday I spoke about thyroid. I've spoken about estrogen. Go back and look at those other lives about all of those other hormones that are all impacted by stress and how that makes you feel. So we've got all these changes that are happening, and we're not looking after ourselves. We're not taking the time, and we're in what is known as a sympathetic dominance. So we've got our nervous system is divided into a sympathetic path, which is the awake, alertness, the fight, the flight, and a parasympathetic, which is the rest and the digest. And we're out of balance. We've got too much sympathetic. We're go, 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 go. We're living in a fast, busy world, and our parasympathetic is way, way down, which means we're not resting, we're not sleeping, we're not digesting. So when all those things are happening, we then start to get symptoms. And particularly as we're coming through the menopause transition, we start to notice those symptoms even more. Actually, a lot of the stuff has been going on beforehand, but you had the protection of estrogen and progesterone, which protected you a little bit, so you don't notice them. But now as those hormones are starting to drop down, now the symptoms are coming to life. And I call menopause nature's wake-up call. So it gives you, it's basically telling you that it's time for you to slow down. It's time for you to start looking after yourself and to make some changes in your life, and not to keep going on this burn, burn, burn all of the time. Because having been someone now, I personally have burnt myself out 4 times. You'd think I would have learned. I also speak about this. I have been speaking about stress to women for the last 5 years, and I know stress so well because I was doing it and I was burning myself out. Like, I was the perfect candidate to be talking about this because I knew exactly how to burn myself out, and then I had to recover myself, and then I'd do it again. Now I'm off that roller coaster because I've made some big changes, and I needed to make those changes. I couldn't keep doing what I was doing because otherwise I kept getting the same result. And even though, people would look and say, well, okay, you eat a, healthy diet, you've got a relatively healthy life. Why is it that you keep burning out? Why do you keep doing it when you're a naturopath and you know this stuff? And I was taking all the herbs and all of that, but I realized that it's not just about taking the herbs. It's actually about making the changes. And I did make the changes. And I'll share with you in a minute a couple of things that you could do to start to change this balance, to bring yourself out of that sympathetic dominance where your adrenal glands are just on all the time and your body is being flooded with cortisol and it's throwing every other hormone out, and you've got all of these symptoms that are going on, and then bring up the parasympathetic so you can rest, you can digest, and in this space you can create something different. But it takes change to get from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, so we can actually go boop and change it. And we actually don't want parasympathetic right up here. We don't want to be out of balance here either. We just want to be able to kind of swing backwards and forwards so that when it's time to sleep, we sleep. When it's time to digest our food, we digest our food. When it's time to get ourselves out of bed and get a little bit motivated, we pick up this side. So we're moving backwards and forwards, but we're not under the influence of these high levels of stress hormones all of the time. So what can we do about it? What can we do about it? And you would have heard me talk about, five steps to thrive in menopause. Number 1, we need to recognize that this is where we are. We need to recognize that we're in a state that our body is speaking to us. So if we're experiencing symptoms, our body is telling us that we are out of balance, and we need to start looking at, where is our body being stressed? Is it stressed on a physical? Is it stressed on an environmental? Is it relationship? Or is it a spiritual level that we need to be dealing with? So we need to look at that. Where is the stress coming from? And the easiest place for each of us to look is just having a look and say, okay, so what about the food am I eating? Am I eating the food that's nourishing my body? Or is there food which is stressing my body? So let's not go for good and bad food. There's food that comes from nature and these other stuff. The food comes from a factory, but there's food that lifts you, nourishes you, supports you, and then there's food that stresses you. So we start with that, and also start with taking time to eat your food rather than gulping your food down, at your desk or wherever. Actually taking the time to rest and allow your body to take the food in, chew it really well, and allow it to digest. And we need to be doing that in a calm place. We need to be consuming our food, so food that's not stressing us, so food that nourishes us, in a calm place, so that we just reduce that stress, and then we can digest that food and get the nourishment out of it. Looking at our exercise, I spoke about exercise. Do the right type of exercise for your body, and that might not be going out for a run. For some people, going out for a run is the best thing they can do. For other people, going for a gentle walk is the best thing they can do. Others, it might be going and lifting some weights, but it's identifying the right type of exercise that builds your body up, doesn't stress you. Also, taking time. And this is a big one, and it's something that took me many, many years to learn how to do, whether or not that be meditation. And you don't have to meditate if you find meditation difficult. And for me, the best way for me to meditate is to go for a walk in nature, and just being quiet and just being in nature. That for me is the best meditation, rather than sitting on a meditation stool in the corner and going om. I do that sometimes too. I do yoga, but going out for me is going out in nature and just having some quiet time, turning the mind off. Journaling, I recommend to most of my clients to journal, and that's just allowing everything that's in your head to go down on a piece of paper. We know that there are neurological pathways, and when you write things on paper, you're able to release them, as opposed to typing them on a computer. It doesn't work the same way, because we're trying to allow the brain to just rest. But just writing anything that comes up, no one's ever going to read this. If you've had an argument with your husband or one of your kids, write down how that's made you feel. And as you write, you will actually, quite often, and this is what I find, is I actually start to resolve it. I start to look at my role in what was going on, what I could do differently next time, and then kind of bring all the emotion out of it. But whatever's going on in your life, even if you want to journal about the way that you feel about your body, because it's changing, just start to journal. And the more you journal, you actually start to resolve it. And don't censor yourself, just write whatever comes into your head. So there are a few things: making sure you're eating the right foods, making sure that you're moving your body the right way, journaling, and taking some quiet time. You can also look at things like yoga. That's also nice way just to calm yourself down. So there are ways to reduce stress in your life. Also, really big one, really, really, really big one. Change the things you can change, and let the things you can't change go. Now, if there is a situation that's going on in your life right now, and just say to yourself, is there anything I can do about this to change it? Whatever it is. Let's just go, let's come up with something. I'm just trying to think. You had an argument with your husband this morning. Now, I've said that a few times. Now, I haven't had an argument with my husband this morning, okay? But you've had an argument with your husband this morning, and he's walked out, and you're all stressed and you're all worked up. So he's gone, so there's no more conversation with him. But now within you, what is it that I can do right now? Is there anything I can do to change the situation? Now, if there is, and maybe there is, maybe you can, make a phone call, you can, do an apology, or maybe there isn't. Right at this moment, there is nothing you can do about it. If there's something you can do, take the action, because that will then allow you to move to the next step. If there's nothing you can do, just admit that. There's nothing I can do with this right now. And then let go of the emotion. Just let it go, because you're holding on to something that you can do nothing about. You have no control over it. Just let it go. And that might be a time when you might pick your journal up and you might write. And that might be what your action's going to be. But don't hold on to something all day. Hold on to this this hurt, this emotion all day until he comes home, 12 hours later, and then bring it all back up again. Because all you've done is completely stress your body out for that entire day. And that's throwing your hormones out, your digestive system, your immune system. It's really impacting you on a physical level. And he's probably walked out the door and forgotten about everything that you have said. A really great thing to do, and you can check this out, is to do the work. And it's just called The Work by Byron Katie. And you can Google The Work by Byron Katie, and there's a worksheet you can follow it through. But find ways to bring that stress down. Just ask yourself all the time, is there something I can do about this? If there is, do it and move on. If there's not, release it and move on. That's it from me today. As I said, I try to keep that into a short thing rather than me talking for hours and hours. I think I did a pretty good job to bring all of that into 22 minutes. From my heart to yours, infinite love and gratitude. Bye for now.